I'm Gail, 31, female. I live a quiet life on the outskirts of the city, where the concrete gives way to sprawling fields. My work as an agronomist means my hands are usually in the soil, studying the intricate science of how things grow. It's a patient, methodical life, one that has taught me that you reap what you sow. My world was small but stable, my work, my mother, and my older brother, Tom. I thought I was investing in my brother's happiness, but it turned out I was just funding the most elaborate act of betrayal I could ever imagine. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My brother, Tom, had always been the golden one. At 32, he was a successful financial analyst with a dazzling smile and an easy charm that made people gravitate toward him. When he introduced our family to his fiancée, Jessica, it felt like the final, perfect piece of his life puzzle had clicked into place. Jessica was 29, a marketing coordinator with a vibrant personality and a social media presence that was as curated as it was beautiful. Together, they were Tom and Jessica, the golden couple, and everyone, including me, was swept up in their fairy tale romance. I'd always been close to Tom. Growing up, he was my protector, the one who taught me how to ride a bike and stood up for me when I was too shy to speak for myself. As adults, our lives diverged, his into the fast-paced world of finance and mine into the earthy, quiet realm of agricultural science. But the bond remained. Seeing him so happy with Jessica filled me with a profound sense of joy. So, when they sat me down one evening, their faces a mixture of excitement and anxiety, to talk about their wedding plans, I was ready to do anything to help. They spoke of a dream wedding, a grand affair at a historic countryside manor, complete with a gourmet caterer, a string quartet, and a photographer who was practically an artist. Their eyes shone as they described it, but then a shadow crossed their faces. They explained that while they were doing well, the cost of such a wedding was astronomical. It was a dream just beyond their reach. Tom looked at me, his expression earnest. "Gail, we know it's a lot to ask," he began, "but we just can't imagine starting our life together any other way." I didn't even have to think about it. I had been saving diligently for years, living modestly and investing wisely. The money was meant for a down payment on a larger piece of land for my research, but what was land compared to my brother's happiness? "I'll take care of it," I said, a smile spreading across my face as their jaws dropped. "Consider it my wedding gift to you both." Jessica burst into tears of gratitude, rushing over to hug me tightly. "Oh, Gail, you're the best sister I could have ever asked for," she gushed. "We'll make you so proud." Over the next few months, I became the silent benefactor of their dream. I attended venue tours, food tastings, and meetings with florists, always in the background, checkbook in hand. I signed the contracts and paid the hefty deposits, my savings account dwindling as their fantasy took shape. Jessica was in her element, directing every detail with the precision of a campaign manager. She was always sweet to me, calling me her angel investor and fairy god sister. My mom, Susan, a retired librarian who valued substance over style, watched the escalating plans with a quiet, unreadable expression. "It's a lot, Gail," she'd said to me once. "Are you sure about this?" "It's for Tom, Mom," I replied simply. "He deserves to be happy." I saw the wedding not just as a party, but as an investment in my family. I was helping to build the foundation of my brother's new life. Every invoice I paid felt like laying another brick for their future. I envisioned years of happy holiday gatherings, of becoming a doting aunt to their children, of our family growing and strengthening. The money, I told myself, was just paper. The memories and the bond we were creating would be priceless. Jessica's gratitude seemed endless, her promises of sisterhood and family unity echoing in every thank you text and gushing phone call. I believed every word. I believed in the perfect facade of the golden couple, and I was happy to be the one gilding their frame. I had no idea how quickly gold could tarnish. The wedding day arrived under a flawless blue sky, the kind of perfect that feels cinematic. The countryside manor was breathtaking, even more so than in the brochures. Roses and peonies cascaded from every surface, their scent mingling with the happy chatter of guests. A string quartet played softly on the grand lawn. Everything was exactly as Jessica had envisioned, exactly as I had paid for. Seeing Tom at the altar, his eyes shining as Jessica walked toward him, I felt a lump form in my throat. This was it. This was the happiness I had invested in. It was all worth it. The ceremony was beautiful, a blur of heartfelt vows and joyful tears. I stood with my mother, my simple, elegant dress feeling perfectly appropriate for the occasion. I was the maid of honor, a role Jessica had insisted upon, and I performed my duties with pride, adjusting her train and holding her bouquet. The reception that followed was even more magnificent. Champagne flowed, the gourmet food was exquisite, and the band was already setting up for a night of dancing. As the official wedding photos were being taken, with the family smiling together against the backdrop of the setting sun, I felt a deep, quiet contentment. It was after the photos, as guests were finding their seats for dinner, that the first crack in the perfect mirror appeared. Jessica, her hand now officially linked with my brother's, pulled me aside with a brilliant smile. "Gail, can I borrow you for a second?" she whispered, leading me away from the crowd toward a secluded stone patio overlooking the gardens. "Of course," I said, assuming she wanted to thank me again or share a private, happy moment. "Everything is absolutely perfect, Jessica. You look stunning." Her smile remained, but something in her eyes shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by a cool, appraising look. "It is perfect, isn't it?" she said, smoothing down the front of her designer gown. "I mean, this is the aesthetic I've been working on for months. It's classic, elegant, timeless." She paused, her gaze flicking over my simple dress and then back to my face, which is why this is a little awkward. I felt a knot of confusion tighten in my stomach. "What is you, Gail?" she said, her voice dropping to a business-like tone. "Look, you've been incredibly generous. We couldn't have done this without you, obviously. The money part is done. But now the experience part begins, and, well, you don't really fit the vibe." I stared at her, certain I had misheard. "The vibe? What are you talking about?" Jessica sighed, a sound of strained patience. "Your whole earthiness," she said, waving a dismissive hand. "The agronomist thing, it's quaint, but this is an A-list event, even if the guests are mostly family. My friends are here, my bosses. I'm going to be posting this all over my social media. The narrative needs to be consistent." She leaned in, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Honestly, Gail, you look like you have farm dirt under your fingernails even when you don't. After this next formal dance, I think it would be best if you just quietly left." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I could hear the distant music, the laughter of guests, but it all sounded muffled, as if coming from underwater. "Leave?" I stammered. "Leave my own brother's wedding?" "Don't be so dramatic," she scoffed. "You are here for the important parts, the ceremony, the family photos. You've done your duty. Now the real party starts. It's for our friends, our crowd. You'd be uncomfortable anyway." She patted my arm, a gesture that was meant to be comforting, but felt utterly condescending. "You can see the rest of it online tomorrow when I post the professional shots. It will be just like you were here. Now, if you'll excuse me, my husband is waiting." With a final, dazzling smile that didn't reach her eyes, she turned and glided back toward the reception hall, leaving me alone on the stone patio. The beautiful sunset suddenly felt cold and mocking. The crack in the mirror wasn't just a crack, it was a complete shattering. And as I stood there, invisible and discarded in the middle of a fairy tale, I had single. Handedly funded, I saw my own reflection in the broken pieces, a fool. My first instinct was to run, to get in my car and drive away, leaving the perfect, elegant party and its perfectly horrible bride behind. My second instinct was to storm into the reception hall and expose Jessica for the cruel, manipulative person she was. But I did neither. A cold, strange calm washed over me, pushing down the initial wave of hurt and humiliation. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a dramatic scene or an immediate retreat. She had told me to leave, but I decided I would leave on my own terms. Instead of heading for the exit, I slipped back into the manor through a side door, finding myself in a quiet, wood-paneled hallway that ran alongside the main ballroom. I just needed a moment to breathe, to process the sheer audacity of what had just happened. I leaned against the wall, the deep bass of the band's music vibrating through the oak. I could hear the muffled voice of the MC announcing the couple's first dance. My brother and his new wife were swaying in the spotlight, blissfully unaware of the sister who was hiding in the shadows, nursing a devastating wound. It was then that I heard voices approaching from the other end of the hall. Jessica's laugh, high and clear, followed by the giggles of her bridesmaids. They were heading for the powder room, their stilettos clicking on the polished floor. I froze, pressing myself deeper into an alcove behind a large potted fern. I didn't want another confrontation. I just wanted them to pass. "Can you believe she was actually going to stay for the whole thing?" Jessica said, her voice dripping with amusement. I honestly thought I was going to have security escort my own sister-in-law out. You handled it perfectly, Jess. One of the bridesmaids replied. So much class. Please leave, you're ruining my aesthetic. They all burst into laughter. My blood ran cold. I stayed completely still, listening. Seriously, though, another bridesmaid chimed in. What is her deal? She's so plain, and that dress, it's nice, I guess, but it screams I am very sensible. She looked like a librarian at a rave. She's a glorified farmer, what do you expect? Jessica said with a snort. She plays in the dirt for a living. I can't have that associated with my brand. The word brand hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a family wedding to her. It was a marketing event. But hey. She continued, her voice lowering slightly. Her weird obsession with her brother and her complete lack of a social life made her the perfect piggy bank. Tom and I knew from the start she'd pay for anything if we made her feel important. The air left my lungs. This wasn't just a moment of wedding day stress or bridezilla behavior. This was calculated. This was a long con. So what's the plan now? A bridesmaid asked. Now that you have the wedding paid for. Oh, the Gale Fund isn't closed for business just yet, Jessica said, and the cruelty in her tone was chilling. We'll let her pout for a few weeks, then Tom will work his magic, lay on the guilt, and she'll come crawling back. We're thinking she can fund the down payment on our house next. She's so pathetic and lonely, she'll do anything to feel like she's part of our perfect little family. The whispers in the wall weren't just whispers anymore. They were a verdict, a final judgment on my character, my life, my love for my brother. They saw me as a tool, a resource to be exploited. My generosity wasn't a gift. It was a weakness they had identified and targeted from the very beginning. The hurt I felt on the patio transformed into something else entirely. A cold, hard, clarifying anger. The kind of anger that doesn't scream, but plans. As their footsteps receded, I stepped out from behind the fern. The music from the ballroom seemed distant and irrelevant. I walked calmly out the side door, not back to the party, but toward the parking lot. Jessica wanted me to leave. Fine, I would leave, but I wasn't just leaving the wedding. I was leaving behind the naive, trusting sister I used to be, and I was going to make sure they understood, in no uncertain terms, the true cost of their perfect day. The drive home was a blur of dark country roads and the glaring headlights of oncoming cars. The hurt was a physical ache in my chest, but beneath it, the cold anger was sharpening into a singular, focused thought. Jessica thought the money part was done. She was wrong. The money part had just begun. When I got back to my small, quiet house, the silence was a welcome relief from the forced cheer of the wedding. I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I walked straight to my home office, powered on my laptop, and sat down at my desk. As an agronomist, my entire career was built on details, on understanding complex systems, on knowing that a successful harvest depends entirely on the preparation done months in advance. I had prepared for this wedding with meticulous financial planning, and now I would use that same methodical precision to dismantle it. I opened the folder on my desktop labeled Tom and Jessica's wedding. Inside were dozens of subfolders, one for each vendor, the manor, the caterer, the florist, the photographer, the band, the luxury car service. I had managed every contract, every payment. My name, my signature, my credit card numbers were on everything. Jessica saw me as a simple farmer. She was about to learn that farmers know a lot about contracts, finances, and the consequences of a bad deal. I pulled up the master spreadsheet where I tracked every expense. I had paid substantial deposits to secure their services, tens of thousands of dollars that were already gone. That was a sunk cost, the price of my own naivety. But as I scanned the payment schedules, a crucial detail became clear. The final payments which constituted the vast majority of the costs were almost all due after the services were rendered. The manor required the final 60% balance on the next business day. The caterer's bill, calculated per head, was to be settled within 48 hours. The band, the photographer, the florist, all had similar terms. They operated on trust, assuming the happy couple or their sponsor would honor the agreement once the magical day was over. That trust was about to be broken. I had set up pre-authorizations on my primary credit card for most of these final payments, a feature I arranged with my bank to make the process seamless. A few clicks on my online banking portal was all it took to revoke them. One by one, I went down the list, canceling every single scheduled payment. A red authorization canceled, notification popped up next to each one, a small but deeply satisfying confirmation of my actions. For an extra layer of security, I called the 24/7 support line for my credit card company. I explained to the agent that I was the primary cardholder and that I had reason to believe the secondary card I had given my brother for wedding emergencies might be misused for unauthorized post-event expenses. I requested an immediate freeze on all further charges from the listed vendors. The agent was efficient and understanding. Within minutes, the card was locked down tighter than a drum. The final step was communication. I couldn't just ghost the vendors. They were businesses that had delivered on their promises. They deserved to be paid, just not by me. I opened a new document and began drafting a formal, polite, and legally precise email. Dear vendor name, it began. This email is in reference to the event held by Thomas last name and Jessica last name on date at venue. As the sponsor who provided the initial deposit for your services, I am writing to inform you that due to unforeseen circumstances, I am retracting my offer to cover the final balance of the contract. The contract for services was formally agreed upon by the bridal couple, and as such, all further financial responsibilities and inquiries regarding the final invoice in the amount of $... should be directed to them. Their contact information is as follows. I sent a customized version of that email to every single vendor, attaching copies of the original contracts where Tom and Jessica's signatures were clearly visible next to mine. I was merely the financier, not the primary client. The legal obligation was theirs. The final email I sent was to the 5-star hotel where I had booked and paid a 3-night stay in the honeymoon suite as a personal gift. The booking was under my name. I canceled it, effective immediately. The charge for tonight would stand, but their luxurious escape was officially over by 4 a.m. It was done. Every financial safety net I had so carefully constructed for them had been systematically removed. I leaned back in my chair, the first rays of dawn painting the sky outside my window. Jessica had wanted a timeless, elegant wedding experience. She was about to get a timeless, elegant lesson in finance instead. The bill was coming due. I slept for a few hours, a deep and dreamless sleep, and woke to a profound sense of calm. The anger from the night before had cooled into a solid, unshakable resolve. I made coffee, sat on my back porch, and watched the sun rise over the fields. My world felt quiet again, back on its proper axis. I had spent months planning their perfect day. I spent one night ensuring they understood its true price. The first call came at 10:15 a.m. It was the venue manager from the manor. He was polite but audibly stressed. MS last name, he started. We have a bit of a situation here. Your brother and his wife are checking out, but the final payment authorization was declined this morning. We have a bill for over $20,000. I understand. I said calmly, my voice even. As I stated in my email last night, I sponsored the deposit, but the final payment is the responsibility of the contracting clients, Tom and Jessica. They claim this is a mistake, the manager pressed. They said you were covering everything. What I was willing to do and what I am obligated to do are two different things. I replied, my tone leaving no room for argument. The contract is with them. The debt is theirs. There was a pause on the other end of the line, then a sigh. Understood, he said, and the call ended. That was just the first drop in what was about to become a torrential downpour. Over the next several hours, my phone was a revolving door of confused and increasingly angry vendors. The caterer called, furious about an unpaid bill for 200 plates of gourmet food. The florist's invoice for thousands of dollars in imported peonies had bounced. The lead singer of the band called me personally, his friendly stage persona gone, replaced by the stern voice of a small business owner demanding payment for his crew's 12-hour gig. To each of them, I gave the same calm, unwavering response. The clients are Tom and Jessica. Please direct your invoices to them. I was a broken record of financial accountability. The real explosion came just after noon. My phone rang and the screen displayed Tom's name. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. A string of frantic texts followed. Gail, call me now. What is going on? The hotel kicked us out of the honeymoon suite. All the vendors are calling us. Did you cancel your card? I let him stew for another hour before I finally decided to answer. His voice was a panicked mess. Gail, thank God. There's a huge misunderstanding. All the wedding payments are being declined. The venue manager just threatened to send us to collections. There's no misunderstanding, Tom. I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. What are you talking about? You said you were paying for it. He yelled, the sound of Jessica crying hysterically in the background, and I did pay for it. I corrected him. I paid the deposits. I paid for the privilege of being told I don't fit the vibe of the event I funded. I paid to be called a pathetic, lonely piggy bank. I paid to be instructed to leave my own brother's wedding so I wouldn't ruin the bride's brand. I've paid quite enough, don't you think? There was dead silence on his end of the line. The crying in the background stopped. What are you talking about? Tom finally stammered. I'm talking about the conversation your wife had with me on the patio, I said, spelling it out for him. And I'm talking about the conversation I overheard between her and her bridesmaids in the hall, the one where she laid out her plan to continue using me as her personal ATM for your house down payment. She was just stressed, Gail. He tried, but his voice was weak, lacking conviction. It's the wedding. She didn't mean it. She meant every word, Tom, and so do I. I said, you wanted a dream wedding, you got it. Now you get the dream bills. The price of everything is on those invoices. You and your wife are the clients. It's time for you to pay. I ended the call before he could respond. I then did one last thing. I logged into my bank account and transferred the remaining bulk of my savings into a long-term, fixed-rate certificate of deposit. It was a symbolic act. The Gale Fund, as Jessica had so cleverly named it, was officially and permanently closed for business. The aftermath was not a single dramatic explosion, but a series of slow, agonizing collapses. For Tom and Jessica, the beautiful dream of their wedding day curdled into a waking nightmare of debt collectors and threatening letters. The total bill they were now responsible for was staggering, well over $50,000. It was a crushing weight that their golden couple image could not sustain. A few days after my call with Tom, my mother, Susan, came to visit. She brought a thermos of tea and a knowing, worried look in her eyes. I saw you leave the wedding early, she said as we sat on my porch, and Tom has been calling me beside himself. He told me a very confusing story about credit cards and vendors. I thought I should hear your side. I told her everything. Every condescending word from Jessica on the patio, every cruel whisper I overheard in the hall. I told her about the canceled payments and the phone calls. As I spoke, I watched my mother's face change from concern to a quiet, simmering fury. When I finished, she simply reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. Her grip was firm. You did the right thing, Gail, she said, her voice filled with a conviction that washed away any lingering doubt I might have had. I raised you both to be kind, but I also raised you to be strong. Kindness without self-respect is just a doormat. They mistook your generosity for weakness. They needed to be shown the difference. Her validation was a balm on a wound I didn't even realize was still so raw. We sat in silence for a while, sipping our tea, the unspoken truth hanging in the air. The family dynamic had been irrevocably broken, but maybe, just maybe, it could be rebuilt into something more honest. Tom and Jessica's attempts to manage the fallout were clumsy and desperate. First came the pleading. Tom left long, rambling voicemails, apologizing profusely while simultaneously blaming Jessica's anxiety and the pressure of it all. He promised she would apologize, that they would make it up to me. But the subtext was always the same: please, just pay the bills. When pleading failed, they turned to guilt. I received texts about how their credit scores were ruined, how they had to cancel their actual honeymoon, how Jessica was so distraught she couldn't even go to work. They were painting a picture of a young couple whose dream was being destroyed by a cruel, unforgiving sister. The final phase was attempted manipulation. Jessica herself sent me a long, flowery email. It spoke of terrible misunderstandings and how her words were taken completely out of context. She said she saw me as a real sister and was devastated that I felt excluded. The email ended with a sickly sweet offer. If you could just help us settle with the vendors, we can put all this ugliness behind us and start fresh as a real family. I deleted the email without a reply. The unveiling of their true character was now complete, not just to me, but to everyone. News of their financial troubles spread. They had to sell the brand, new car they'd bought just before the wedding. They had to give up the lease on the stylish downtown apartment they had planned to move into, opting for a smaller, cheaper place in the suburbs. The carefully curated social media narrative of their perfect life fell silent. There were no glamorous honeymoon pictures, no gushing posts about their dream wedding. Their online brand, which Jessica had so fiercely protected, was tarnished by the one thing she couldn't filter out: reality. The confrontation wasn't a single shouted conversation. It was a quiet, firm, and unyielding line I drew in the sand. Every unanswered call, every deleted text, every returned letter was a part of it. It was the silent, powerful confrontation of consequences, and it was far more effective than any argument I could have ever made. They had unveiled their true selves to me, and now I had unveiled the true cost of their choices to them. Months drifted by, and the seasons began to turn. The frantic calls and texts from Tom and Jessica eventually slowed to a trickle, then stopped altogether. I learned through my mother that they had taken out a massive consolidation loan to pay off the wedding vendors, a debt that would follow them for at least a decade. Their life was no longer golden, it was mortgaged to a single day of vanity. My relationship with Tom was fractured, perhaps irreparably. He had made his choice, siding with his wife's ambition over his sister's dignity. The easy camaraderie we once shared was gone, replaced by an awkward, painful silence. I mourned the loss of the brother I thought I had, the protector from my childhood. But I also came to realize that the person I was mourning might have been a memory all along. The man who stood by while his sister was used and insulted was not the boy who taught me to ride a bike. People change, and sometimes they change into strangers. In the quiet that followed the storm, I found a new sense of peace. I poured my energy back into my work. I walked the fields, analyzed soil samples, and consulted with farmers, finding a deep satisfaction in the tangible, honest cycle of planting and harvesting. Nature didn't lie or manipulate. It operated on a simple, profound principle: you get back what you put in. My hands were once again covered in rich, dark soil, and it felt like coming home. My relationship with my mother, Susan, deepened. We saw each other more frequently, our conversations filled with an honesty that hadn't existed before. She had seen the truth of the situation and had stood by me without hesitation. Her quiet strength was an anchor, and in her I found the unwavering family loyalty I had mistakenly sought from my brother. One crisp autumn afternoon, I was at my desk, sketching out a crop rotation plan, when an envelope arrived in the mail. It was a thank you card from the venue manager of the manor. Inside, he had written a short, simple note. Dear MS, last name. It read, I wanted to thank you for your directness in handling the payment issue. The couple eventually settled their account. It is rare to see such integrity. We hope you will visit us again under happier circumstances. Tucked inside the card was a gift certificate for a weekend stay. I smiled. It was a small gesture, but it felt significant. It was an acknowledgement from a stranger that I had acted not out of malice, but out of principle. I never did use the gift certificate. The manor, for all its beauty, held too many ghosts, but I kept the card as a reminder. Reclaiming the pieces of my life didn't mean trying to glue the old ones back together. It meant sweeping them away and starting fresh. I had lost a significant amount of money and a brother I once adored. But I had gained something far more valuable. A clear, unshakable understanding of my own worth. I learned that my generosity is a gift, not an obligation, and it must be earned. My garden is my own now, and I choose very carefully what I allow to grow in it. Some ground, I've learned, is simply too toxic for planting. The best and only thing to do is walk away and cultivate a space where good things can thrive, and in my quiet, peaceful life, things are finally thriving.